I would now like to discuss AOVs, or arbitrary output vectors, or render passes, or extra image planes. It basically depends which software renderer you're using, but essentially they're arbitrary data from either the scene or from the geometry or from the renderer itself that we output as extra images, and we use those for either diagnostic purposes or for doing interesting stuff within compositing. So let's have a look in Houdini how we can output AUVs, or as Houdini calls them, extra image planes. I'm just going to disconnect my mantra node here so that when I render this main mantra node, I'm not going to render the other ones. And I'm just going to select it. If we go to the Images tab here, into the extra image planes, here we can add those extra image planes. So for example, I can turn on the point position here, or the normal, and I'm also going to turn on indirect lighting per component. That's going to give me the indirect lighting contributions to the renderer for which components? Well, they're listed up here for the diffuse, reflect, coat, refract, volume, and subsurface. So let's have a look at how that would work. So I'm just going to pop over to the render view. Just going to make sure I've got the right mantra node selected here, the main one, because we'd set up the takes before. And then I'm just going to hit render and just wait for that to kick in for a second. So as we render, Mantra will split up those various contributions and store them as extra images. And we can view those extra image planes up here in this little drop down. If I just click on it, oh, it's just not showing it for a second there. There we go. It shows you the extra image planes here. So look, if I look at P for the point position pass, or I could look at N for the normal pass, and I can look at the indirect reflection contribution there. If I turn up the gamma, we can see it's quite noisy, and we'd use this for diagnostics, going to the samples and adjusting it, or maybe using that in comp to help improve things. So you can see the AOV, or the extra image plane workflow in Houdini, is quite simple. Just on the render node, we just turn on the main buttons. Now over to Maya and Arnold, and actually it's a very, very similar process, which is pleasing to know. They're very similar renders, so a lot of the things are pretty much very familiar within both softwares. So just like Houdini, we want to bring up sort of the render settings. So in Maya, that's the render settings here, not a node. And we can click on the AOV tabs, because Arnold calls them arbitrary output vectors. And we'll see a list of them to the left here. So there's my P for position, there's the N for normal. And if I scroll down, I can see my specular indirect. And I'd have to go and put through the other contributions like volume indirect, etc. if I wanted to. So I could add as many AOVs as I want, and they're stored down here. So if I just kick the renderer off, you'll see just as it kicks in, again we have another little drop down here which shows us those extra image planes, just like Houdini. So if I click on N, there's the normal pass, P is the position pass, and there's our indirect reflections there. So the interesting thing to note is, as you can see, the workflow between both softwares is very, very familiar and very similar.